The circular flow, how the whole system breathes. John stands at the center of his workshop, watching a delivery truck arrive with parts while his assistant packages a finished keyboard for a customer. He realizes that every transaction he makes is like a single heartbeat in a much larger organism. When he pays his assistant, that money becomes someone's grocery budget. When he buys copper, that money helps a mining company pay its engineers. Everything is connected. To visualize this constant movement, John turns to Gregory Mankiw's circular flow diagram. It is a simple but profound model that shows how the entire economy breathes through the exchange of dollars, goods, and services. John learns that in this simplified world, there are two primary actors: households and firms. John's business is a firm. Firms produce goods and services using various inputs, such as labor, land, and capital, like John's 3D printers. These inputs are called the factors of production. On the other side are households, like John himself when he's at home, or his neighbors. Households own the factors of production and consume all the goods and services that firms produce. These two actors interact in two distinct arenas. The first is the market for goods and services. In this market, households are the buyers and firms are the sellers. When John sells a custom keyboard to a gamer, the household, spends money, and John, the firm, receives revenue. This is the outer loop of the diagram, the flow of dollars. The second arena is the market for the factors of production. Here, the roles are reversed. Households are the sellers and firms are the buyers. In this market, John's assistant sells his labor to the workshop. John's firm pays wages, which become income for the assistant household. John also uses his own capital and land, which in economic terms are rented from the household sector. As John traces the lines of the diagram, he sees two concentric circles moving in opposite directions. The inner loop represents the flow of real things. Inputs like labor flow from households to firms, and outputs like keyboards flow from firms back to households. The outer loop represents the flow of money. Spending flows from households to firms, and that same money flows back to households in the form of wages, rent, and profit. This model reveals a fundamental truth to John. In any economy, total income must equal total expenditure. Every dollar John spends on a part is income for a supplier. Every dollar a customer spends on a keyboard is income for John and his team. This is why GDP can be measured either by adding up everyone's spending or by adding up everyone's income. Both paths lead to the same mountain peak. However, John notices that the real world is a bit more complex than this basic circle. He thinks about the leaks and injections in the system. When John saves some of his profit in a bank instead of spending it, that money leaks out of the immediate circular flow. But when the bank lends that money to a different firm to build a new factory, it is injected back in as investment. Similarly, when John pays taxes, money flows to the government, which then injects it back through government spending on roads or schools. Finally, when John sells a keyboard to someone in another country, it's an injection of foreign money into his local circle. John realizes that a recession is like the system taking a shallow, weak breath. If households become afraid and stop spending, the flow of dollars to firms slows down. Firms, receiving less revenue, have to cut back on the factors of production, meaning they hire fewer workers or pay lower wages. This, in turn, reduces household income, causing them to spend even less. It's a downward spiral. Conversely, an economic boom is a deep, powerful breath where spending and income reinforce each other, making the circle spin faster. Understanding the circular flow gives John a sense of perspective. He no longer sees his workshop as an isolated island. He sees it as a vital node in a global network. He understands that the health of his business depends on the ability of households to spend, and the ability of households to spend depends on the wages paid by firms like his. He realizes that by being a fair employer and a producer of high-quality goods, he is helping to keep the breath of the economy steady and strong. John closes his macroeconomics book and looks at his workshop with new eyes. The delivery truck leaving, the assistant arriving for work, the electricity powering the printers, it's all part of the flow. He is a participant in a magnificent, synchronized dance of value. With the logic of the circular flow etched in his mind, John feels ready to navigate the global stage, knowing that in the world of economics, every end is just the beginning of a new cycle.